Alright, back again, and I'm going to cough a lot during this video, so I apologise for that. For God's sakes, here we go. So, what was I going to talk about? Let me adjust that first. Right, if you haven't already, there's this little button called subscribe. Please hit that. I do wrestling videos, I do MMA videos, I do comic book videos every once in a while, and hopefully I won't be coughing so much in the future, and this thing goes. But what do I want to talk about? Seth Rollins and The Shield and the big push, or the inevitable plummet and breakup of the group. So before I get that started, let me just have a quick swig of this. And now let's get back to the topic at hand. Pardon me, didn't want to plan to share that with you. So, The Shield are breaking up, as if you couldn't tell. And oh, for God's sakes, everybody online is talking about, is paying attention to the push that Roman Reigns is getting. And as you can tell, it looks like Roman Reigns is going to be the breakout guy of the three, the first one to leave, the babyface of the group, the big, powerful, imposing force of nature that we're going to get behind this year, that rises through the ranks, usurps the authority, and maybe goes on from there and becomes world champion. And I can see why they want to do that. You know, he's the type of guy that they would like. Big, athletic, not uncoordinated, has a big presence to him, and is definitely someone they like. You know, WWE is the land of giants, and why not try that with a guy that has all of that and is also of that great Samoan wrestling family. And I can see, you know, I mean, I remember seeing him come out for WrestleMania, and I did look at him when he was standing there and as they were doing their entrance, and I did think, you know what, I could see them breaking him away at some point. So I can see that happening. And obviously we all talk about Dean Ambrose being the other guy in the company, or in the group, being the next guy that everyone wants to see. And I know everybody on the internet loves Ambrose, and I do too. Very, very great talker, great character, great presence. Just, he could be the villain of the company for quite a few years, in my opinion, and I think that that's where he should be groomed. And it seems like every time the topic of the Shield and what's going to happen afterwards comes up, we all talk about Ambrose, we all talk about Roman Reigns, but the one person we don't talk about is actually Seth Rollins. And the title of the video, as you can see, is What About Seth Rollins? Hopefully in that order. And while we talk about those other two, we don't really talk about him. And it makes me think, let's talk about him for a while. Why is it that when we talk about the Shield split up, we talk about Ambrose and we talk about Reigns, but we're not too sure about Seth Rollins, even though one could argue in-ring wise, he's probably the best of the three when it comes to his in-ring work, what he does with other wrestlers in there. And he had a phenomenal little match with John Cena for SmackDown, by SmackDown standards. He had a great little showing there, and that's not even his best showing in his entire career. If you've followed his Ring of Honor career, and you followed his career on the independent scene, one of the last guys on the indie scene I really had interest in, or if you want to say last Ring of Honor guy I had interest in, and obviously a guy that was a standout in FCW when it came to matches. Wasn't one of these generic wrestlers, you know, punch, punch, chin lock, pose, punch, punch, chin lock, pose. Sounds like a Randy Orton match. It didn't, you know, have that basic formulaic style, or pedestrian style, as I like to say. And he wasn't one of those guys that suffered the developmental lobotomy when an exciting guy gets brought in and then they lobotomize the guy, and then he's just another guy in the pack. He blatantly stood out, had a very acclaimed and praised run and feud with Dean Ambrose in FCW. Was the FCW 15 champion, which is like the workhorse championship in my opinion. Was very, very effective on an NXT, and people kept wondering when we were going to see him. And obviously the one knock on him was promos, and he can be a bit up and down on them. There are times when I think he can be really good, and there are times when I think he can be a bit off, and if he can be consistent there, he could actually do quite well. Whilst he doesn't have the promo skills of a Dean Ambrose or a CM Punk, he could develop into a guy that holds his own. And I think that was the one knock. But outside of that, this is a guy that's actually quite tall, fantastic shape, very exciting, young, high-flying, and has adjusted reasonably well to the WWE style. But you hear a lot of people say that when the Shield breaks up, that's the guy that's going to be left behind. That's the guy that the main reason why they don't want to split the Shield up, or have Reigns leave and keep the other two and have one more, is so that Seth doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And it's very interesting that that is the topic, because he doesn't have the things like Roman Reigns has going for him. Roman's a huge man, second generation. They love that, that kind of build. But he is very, very talented. And it does make you wonder, when they do eventually split up, what happens with Seth? What do they do with him? What could they do with him? Where do they go with him? It looks like Reigns is going to be groomed for big things. What does that mean for Seth? Does Seth stay in a tag team with Ambrose? Doesn't look like it. Because it looks like Seth is going to break away too, because it looks like those two are going to leave Ambrose and go off to do their own thing. Ambrose, obviously, you can, if you're a creative writer, you can write a lot of things for him, but what do they do for Seth? Perhaps maybe a feud with Dean Ambrose. Why don't we bring that rivalry from the developmental system onto mainstream TV after Reigns breaks away? Why not do a Rollins and Ambrose feud for the US title? Actually make the US title mean something for a change, which would be good. And why not have Seth, maybe, I don't know, I mean, Biggie Langston's Intercontinental Champion, but one thing would have been to have had one of them have one belt and one have the other belt, and then they have a unification match and they have a rivalry over the belt or the unified title and go from there. What else could they do with Seth? He would be a guy that, to me, would benefit if there was still that SmackDown 7. If you remember back in the day when they had the 7 elite level workers, Edge, the Guerreros, Ray, Brock, Kurt, Benoit, all of those guys, he would have been one of those guys that would have benefited from that kind of package, because he really could have gone far in that kind of role. And to me, he's one of the guys that could fill in that role that has been, there's a big gap since those days of Angle, Guerrero, Benoit, and Jericho, and all of those guys who kind of left or, unfortunately passed away. He could be one of those guys for the future that fills in that gap, based on his in-ring work alone. It's just, you just wonder, are they willing to do that with him? Are they going to go that way with him? Could he be a guy that then eventually goes all the way to the top and main events? And that looks like it's a lot harder to do now, because they've unified both belts, and now, look at the way they create stars, single stars more or less. Do I see them making him a contender for a John Cena or a Randy Orton for the unified belt? It's doubtful, even though I think he may have opened some eyes with the Cena match, with how he worked, with Cena. That maybe it's a possibility, but I think it would have been a greater possibility if the brand extension had meaning, and SmackDown and Raw were two separate brands, which they're not. But if they were, and you had a world title and a WWE title, and those belts were credible on both shows, and there wasn't this merging of the two rosters, I think his chances of breaking out would have been significantly higher. But now, given the current state of things, it does make me concerned for him, and I really hope that he isn't a guy that gets left to flounder, much like Justin Gabriel, though he's significantly better than Justin Gabriel. But that's just an example of a guy that was good enough, but just, gets lost in the shuffle. I wouldn't like him to see go by the way of a Tyson Kidd or somebody else that just flounders in the end, and, he's too talented for that. So I just want to know what people think about that. Sorry if I'm waffling, it's a bit, late at the moment, and not feeling too good. And if you want to comment, feel free. Please comment. If you just found this channel for the first time, please hit that subscribe button. If you haven't seen this video, feel free to check out a video that Amoir Thinks did on David Benoit, Chris Benoit's son wrestling. It was very, very thought-provoking, and if you want to have your mind provoked and think about it, go and check that video. I mean, I want to know what people think about that, by the way. Anyways, I'm going to stop. Comment, rate, subscribe, wrestling forums, any of you down there watching this, hello to all of you, and I am going to stop. Oh yeah, and hello to my new subscriber, Catherine Waity. Hello, it's nice to have you here. Welcome aboard. Guys, take care, and I will see you all soon.